Hey, so this is a really quick live. I'm in the middle of Slimmers calls, and during my Slimmers calls this evening, we've been talking a lot about those first kind of 4 to 5 weeks on plan. I've had some Slimmers that have maybe fallen off in the early parts of their plan. I've got other Slimmers that are maybe struggling a little bit, and I've got other Slimmers that are absolutely flying. But what it's made me think about is something called the change curve. And I wanted to come on and do a really quick video explaining this to hopefully help you understand if you are having difficulty in those first 4 to 5 weeks, why, and why actually our minds and how we are whenever we take on anything new can mean that we're set up with a bit of a mountain to climb before we get to that easy breezy stage of being on plan. So it's going to be a bit of trainer Rachel this evening. It's only going to be quick because, like I say, I'm in between calls, but I just want to go through it with you. So whenever you take on any new thing in your life, whenever you change anything, if you have a change in your work, if you have a change in your home life, if you have a change in your diet, such as when you're doing plan, you will go through something called the change curve. And this is just our natural reactions to change. As humans, we do not love change. We want to kind of stay in a steady state. We want to stay in a state of what we know. We don't want to be put against the unknown. We don't want to have any uncertainty. We like nice and steady. And what happens when you bring something new in, a change in, is that we go through some stages similar to stages of grief. So when you lose somebody in your life, we all know of the stages that we can go through with grief. It's very similar with change. And when you understand this, it can make your reactions in those first couple of weeks easier to process. So the first stage of change, if I look down, it's just because I've got the change curve up. I'm going to explain this now. So the first stage of change is what we call the shock phase. So this is going, oh my gosh, what is going on? Why do I need to do this? Why is this happening? And it's kind of just that beginning bit almost before the plan starts. So before you start on the diet, when you're like, how have I let this happen? Like, how have I got to this point? Like, explain to me somebody how I've got here. I know I had that. I definitely had that. And that is usually that moment that you are reaching out to your consultant and being like, something needs to happen. I'm not in a good place. Help me. And then you discuss the plan, you hear about the plan, and you suddenly realize that change is going to happen in your life. And that would be that kind of shocked phase of the plan or of this curve. After that, you're going to go into a state of denial or a stage of denial. So after that shock phase, after that kind of, oh my gosh, I can't believe this has happened, we start plan, we start doing well on plan. Then plan starts getting hard, maybe day 3, day 4, day 5, when things are a bit difficult. All of a sudden, your brain is going to enter into a state of denial, and you're going to say, do you know what? I don't need to do this plan. This is really extreme. I don't need to do this. Like, I can just do X, Y, Z. I don't need to do this. This is ridiculous. I'm not as bad as I think. I'll be fine. Blah, 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 blah. Denial. And this is where people typically find that early on they may come off plan. And it's because that state of denial is coming in. And this is where reinforcing your whys is so important, and why it is so important that before you start the plan, you really sat down and set out the reasons why you are doing it and why it is so important to you. After that state of denial, you're going to get frustrated. You're going to be getting annoyed that you are in the position that you're in. Why have I let myself get here? Why do I have to do this plan? Why can I not just be a size 12, 14? Why do I have to deal with this? I try really hard. I try and watch what I eat. Why can't I control it? Why can't I manage my weight? Frustration, anger. And whenever you pair that with maybe having a difficult day in work, difficult day with the kids, difficult day with your husband, you're trying to do plan, add in that frustration, is it any wonder why people then come off and have a takeaway or a bottle of wine or something like that? But actually, that frustration is completely normal. And what we need to do is accept it and be like, do you know what? I know I am frustrated, and I have a right to be frustrated, because I am frustrated that I've got myself to this place. Oh my gosh, I was so annoyed with myself. I was so frustrated that I had found myself in a place where I was nearly 20 stone. Of course I was frustrated. It wouldn't be normal if you weren't frustrated that you found yourself in this position. But it is completely normal and we need to work through it. And this is where you need to be reaching out to your consultant. After frustration comes a low phase or a depressive phase. And this phase normally coincides with kind of that week 2 to week 4 on plan, whenever you get a lower loss. And this is why this phase can be so difficult, because you're dealing with being slightly low or depressed at the situation you find yourself in, alongside a slow or stagnant loss on the scales. And those two things hand in hand, they marry up for a really crap week. And a really difficult time, because you probably will feel low here. You probably will feel like you just low, and that's okay. But this again is where it's really important to reach out to your consultant so that they can work with you through this. And some really important things to do during this stage is to make sure you rationalize. So if you have a low loss in that week, you need to be making sure you're looking back over the whole time you've been on plan to understand how much weight you've lost in total. It's also really good to look at that overall figure and turn that into a percentage of your weight loss. You'll find during this period of time that people normally compare a lot, because they're feeling low. They typically reach out to try and find, I don't know, a way to make themselves feel better, but innately, because that loss has been lower on the scale, typically it actually only makes them feel worse. So it's important that you've got your consultant there to kind of rationalize things without you going and trying and doing that and actually just comparing. Comparison is the thief of joy after all. After this point though, if we get through that, then we typically go into a stage of experiment. And this is where the curve is changing. They always say, don't they, you hit rock bottom and you come back up. And when you hit that depressive phase, if you can get through that, if you can use your consultant support, use your toolkit to get through that stage, you will come out into a stage, what we call experiment. And this is where you start engaging with that change. So when it comes to plan, for example, you may start trying some new products. You may start blogging your journey on Instagram. You may start interacting in some Facebook groups or WhatsApp groups that your consultant has for their slimmers. You may start making some jelly sweets or trying some pop squares. You start engaging with the change and start accepting it. This is where the acceptance of that change begins, and you begin to want to take on the challenge, if you like, of being on plan, versus the previous few weeks when, because we've been dealing with that denial, that frustration, that depressive state, we felt we have to do plan. And have versus want are very different emotive feelings. When we feel we have to do something, that will normally come with a negative connotation, versus I want to do this, we normally feel much more positive about that and want to go ahead and do that. So this is where that kind of pendulum starts turning to a more positive. So after we've been experimenting, we then get to a state which we call the decision-making state. And this is where you start to learn to work with the plan, and you've decided that you want to do the change, whatever that change is. So again, it's where that want to do it is much more stronger. And again, you typically find in this stage that if the plan feels much easier, you're starting to enjoy the plan. You've maybe started making some foundations with new friendship groups within the community. And generally, this is where things start to feel a bit easier. And after this comes the final stage of the change curve, which is integration. And this is where we have integrated that change into our life. We've accepted it. It is just part of our life. And this will be that stage where you hear people say, but it's just really simple. The plan's just really easy. I find it really easy to do. It's because that change has now been integrated. And it's the same with anything, changing your job, having a baby, buying a new house. Like initially, that change is foreign. It's difficult. The plan is no different. And you have to accept that you will go through these stages when you start it. And it's only by acknowledging and accepting that this is what is going to happen that you will get through it. If you think that you're going to come on to plan and it's just going to be smooth sailing from the day dot, then you're wrong, and you will find it so much harder. I always remember somebody saying to me, and I was just speaking to a slimmer about it this evening, that instead of getting frustrated with the way that you're thinking or the way that your brain is maybe acting with you, become intrigued of why you act and think about certain things. So if you're finding yourself becoming frustrated or annoyed or really wanting that takeaway or that bottle of wine, sit back for a minute and get intrigued as to why your mind's doing that, why you're thinking like that. Because it's only when we sit back and ask ourselves why we're doing the things we're doing, can we then make a plan to change the habits or change the thinking paths that we have in place. So that is a little bit of how the change curve can be in play in those first kind of 4 to 5 weeks, maybe even 6 weeks of plan. And why, if you can identify if you are in certain parts of that change curve, you can appreciate and acknowledge and understand why and be accepting of it, and know that it is completely natural and normal. Some key tips: don't ghost your consultant during these times. You're going through, especially in those first couple of stages, you're going to want to just hide away and retreat back to your old norm. And your consultant isn't that. Your consultant is the epitome of change. But that is not a bad thing. And they're there to be a comforting change, to hold your hand through it. So do not ghost them. Reach out to them if you need them. Book in to see them, ring them, talk to them. They have been there. We have been through this, and they are there to help you and offer an ear to listen and some advice on potentially things you can do to help you get through that period. As I said, be intrigued. Having a diary or writing down whenever you're going through certain periods of time can really help to get those thoughts and feelings out. Getting them out on paper really helps. They once did a study looking at people that were dealing with grief, and found that people that wrote down how they were feeling found that they processed their grief quicker than those who didn't. And this is something I did whenever I was going through grief to try and help me, and through other difficulties. I will write out my feelings and emotions, and you can literally write it all out on a note on your phone and delete it. You can write it on a bit of pen and paper and delete it. You don't have to keep it, but writing out your thoughts can be really, really helpful. And then also building a support network around you. So you've got your consultant there to talk to, but also reach out to friends, family members, people that know you and who want the best for you, and just say to them about how you're feeling and ask them for their support in helping you get through that period of time. Hopefully this has been beneficial. I know it's been quick, but I am going to save it to my IGTV, and hopefully you can take something away from this. And if you are in the beginning of your journey, it can help you get through that beginning period and get through that curve of change that we're all going through. But as always, if you've got any questions, do leave them in the comment section below, and I will look to go in and answer them. And if you yourself have got any tips or tricks for those first couple of weeks on plan, please leave them below, so that others who come to this video who may be struggling, they can also look in there for some advice from those who've also been through it. So yes, I hope everyone has a lovely evening, and I will talk to you all again very soon. Bye.